I've just chosen a karakia tonight, which has got some connections. So, Puratia mai rā te tika, he kōrero. Puratia mai rā te pono, he wānanga. Puratia mai rā aroha, he āwhina, te nākaua tangata. Kia tū, kia ātia, kia marama. Hui e tai kia. And just very quickly, what that opening karakia meant was hold on to what is right and what we'll talk about. Hold on to the truth and what we're learning about. Hold on to the aroha that we're sharing and helps us so that we may stand clearly. And that last bit, hui e tai kia, is gather, bind and unite. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, David. Thank you. So thank you all for coming. I know it's obviously a busy time for a few of you. Some of you have potentially still got financial year end to finish, but I appreciate you all being here. Just some quick housekeeping in case you do need it. The toilets, if you just go straight down to the end of Tribe and to the left, keep the door open, but the toilets are literally opposite the main entrance here. Please feel free to just sort of get up, take a drink, or get a drink, help yourself. We keep that fairly casual. I also wanted to introduce the panel. They can introduce themselves. I am going to get them to introduce themselves. But we've got Sam Ho, Managing Director of Robotics. We've got Karen Jones, Executive General Manager of lots of things at FMA, who I've known for a very long time. We've got lots of experience in AI, data science, innovation, technology, you name it. And we've got Jeanette Kreft, who is the Managing Director of her business, the Compliance Company. I'm going to get them all to just tell us a fun fact about themselves. I heard one about Curry earlier, so I think I'm putting them on the spot a bit. They can introduce themselves and then tell us one fun fact about themselves. You told me that, but I didn't know that.
I'm okay with that one.
Could anyone hear Curry?
Yep.
Great.
So fun fact.
Well, introduce yourself and a fun fact.
Okay. So I think. Are you standing? You talked about the F45 this morning, and I'm like, I went up for a run, and I was like, oh. Stretch myself out to this So I think when I like to sort of talk about my journey with AI. It goes back a very, very long way. So I was lucky enough to be born into a household where my dad enrolled me in computer club when I was about 7 years old. That's a very long time ago. And my mum was, I would call her a futurist. She would never call that herself. But she basically force-fed me Isaac Asimov on cassette tape and Star Trek on VHS. Some of you don't know what any of those formats or those media are. Look them up on ChatGPT. I think that the point is I then went into university eventually and studied computer science, got into data, into technical roles. And so I have been constantly just really let down by AI. I've been waiting for so long for the robots to arrive. Okay, so long. You know, voice to text crap for years and years and years. Any type of stuff that I want to do on the go is rubbish. Dragon, I think everyone would have heard of using Dragon apps a while back, useless. Siri, quite frankly, what a waste of time. And it's only been, I think, in the last kind of year that I've just felt, finally, okay, I've got the productivity tools where I can work a decent week, and then my fun fact is, you know, living on my hobby farm, experimenting with gin, learning how to make gin and alcohol, which I've learned all basically through a combination of YouTube and ChatGPT. And
to do that, you need to be
I think we're finally here at a point in time where we can be liberated from the boredom of so much of our work, and we just have to, I suppose, embrace it and get excited about it, and believe that we as professionals can continue to learn the new skills that we need, so that we can have a 40-hour week and have a life at the weekend where we're not working on board papers or whatever it might be. And so I think that's some of the things I want to share with you this evening. I think that's the opportunity that we've got, the finance teams, but as all of us as executive professionals. So there you go.
Who wants to go next?
I'm going to go next. My name's Jeanette. I do compliance, which I was saying to someone, and it actually landed really badly. I'm like, is it better than accounting or not? Sarah asked me to come along and speak, and I was a bit concerned. I've been married for a really long time now. I don't look like it because I look youthful. My husband is an accountant, and I have done my utmost in feigning interest in what he talks about. And when Sarah invited me to speak, I actually had to actively engage. So an interesting fact about me is I am married to an accountant. Hi, my name is Jeanette. And I have been listening to my husband talk about accounting things, and the highlight of the last week was the balancing of the cash flow forecast that he's been working on because the GST depreciation was slightly miscalculated. Imagine what my marriage is
That's a good show. To the room. Yeah.
Hi guys, my name's fun fact about me, I used to be an accountant. So look, I actually got into software and robotics through after my first few years of working. I just felt so frustrated. I was copying and pasting so much data from one spreadsheet to another, and I thought, look, it has to be an easy way of doing things. So I remember back in university, I did a course in Finance 310. I calculated internal rate of return with a macro, X macro. So from then, I kept building on that macro, and those 5 days a week, I managed to just use a macro, reduce to 2 days a week for my day job. So from then, I thought, look, if I could do this with macro, if I learn the whole software programming suite, what more can I do? And that's really pushing to actually explore a lot of AI and move into this whole software automation space. So I have to tell you, AI is amazing, especially the last 2 years. And if you do embrace it, you do a lot of amazing things.
That's great. Well, we do really appreciate your time, and I'll talk to a few of you in this room, as we've sort of set up for this event, just asking the question, what do you want to hear from us about AI? And I think the first question is really open for that very reason, that we've heard of finance as a whole as one of the latest, or I guess the last adopters of using AI in their day roles, and we just really want to ask you why you think that is. Who would like to take the floor?
Right hand. I think being an accountant, much the same as being in compliance, and I do have a presence here because we are launching AI tools, is you're risk averse, and quite rightfully so. In the world that I play in, there are regulatory consequences for non-compliance, and if you're in the accounting and finance function, there are regulatory consequences and real business implications if you get it wrong. And accountants and finance people, which I have a first-hand experience, but are inherently risk adverse because you have this view that you should be custodians. You're not inherently disruptors. And I think that that's a really important point. And the way that accountants work is everything has to be precise. Everything has to be auditable. If we entrust something to a black box that we don't understand and we can't audit, what happens if it goes wrong? And those are fair questions to ask. And so I think there's absolutely a place for this hesitation that the accounting and finance industry is having, much the same as the compliance industry as well. It's justified.
And I can absolutely see that perspective. And when I go back several years and think about the work that I did in Data World, building out, architecting, data warehousing, all of those types of activities, mainly in the UK before I came to New Zealand, I was working for CFOs. And so, CFOs were at the forefront of data thinking, advanced analytics. And so, I think it's there. I think the desire, I think they have been at the forefront of innovative thinking, data-driven decision making, evidence-based decision making. And then let's face it, when COVID hit, we had to throw out a lot of the tools, at least for some of the organisations I was working as a host at the time, because the current models of forecasting weren't working anymore. And so they were working then, finance teams were working alongside data science teams to start to think about, well, what are some of the different statistical kind of tools that we can use that, your numbers people, data scientists and numbers people, let's bring those skills together and start to use different techniques to better forecast for the situation that we've got. And so while I think you might say that finance teams seem to be the laggards in this, that hasn't always been the case, especially when it comes to the adoption of technology. Finance teams were adopting, advanced, financial systems, and so I think it's about, I suppose, refinding some of that mindset and reinvigorating it for the adoption of this new technology that's come along. It's just another tool set. So it's about learning a new set of skills that take the finance team to the next level.
And sort of, I guess, building on that, and you've already, Jeanette, mentioned that obviously, most of us are risk averse. I'm talking about I'm an accountant, sorry, but they need to think about how to feel safe using AI in their sort of day-to-day practices. If they haven't used it before, and I'm talking, and I know someone said to me just before that they haven't, where's a good place to start? Where do you start with the big problem or the big audacious problem that is AI? Sam?
Yeah, I think the last year Congress passed the bill that required ChatGPT to authenticate all chats to and from the platform. So it just means that whatever you put in, you need to know that the US they could actually get access to, right? So that in itself poses a big risk from us. That's the standpoint. If it's country, where's the data can help? And maybe another way to think about it is look, ChatGPT in itself is you don't always have to feed the data. There's a lot of use cases you can do to get data to use it, get some benefits by just asking the questions. And in software terms, you call it pull rather than push. So you don't push any data, you pull data. So ChatGPT has been scraping over all of these big data warehouses for ages, for 5-10 years. You can actually ask it questions to actually get the knowledge it already has on how this is to actually get some benefits. I mean, for example, you don't have to feed in your whole financial history. You can say, look, if you're going into let's say an industry where you're going into beef, you can say, look, in New Zealand, what are the top 5 beef competitors and what are the various industries? So that is a pool, right? You get this information. Same way, and this is just one small business example. You can actually ask it other questions. So you can say, 5 data points, how do you best structure your Excel spreadsheet in order to automate this the best way possible, right? And it'll just give you a lot of pointers, tell you how you fill your tabs, and how you actually pull the data in to get the best results. So I guess if you were to just start, right, you can start just finding ways to pull data in rather than pushing any information into the model. But look, we have had scenarios where if you have to push it in, you could actually, you could just use aliases. So, for example, we had a client that was in the pharmaceutical industry, they needed to actually they want a way to cross-check whether a medication will have implications with past history. So, obviously the system has MHI and all of that sensitive information. You could say, look, we're going to say this is patient X, they have a history of A, B, and C, this is medicine influence patient X when if they take this, and it will either be a yes or no, and what are the implications. So we can just take that upload and bring it back. But there are ways of just putting in this without having to feed it in the data.
Yeah, I would just, again, just remind us that actually finance teams have been using AI for a very long time. We just haven't necessarily called it that. And so, image, when we scan a receipt using your phone and it all loads into your Freedom app or whatever your expenses app might be, that's a type of artificial intelligence. It's called image recognition. And actually, so did we go through the same kind of freak out kind of status? Did we go through the same kind of, oh my God, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? I don't think we did. And so we recognised that there was a clear frustration and a pain point that the organisation was facing, which was doing our expenses and often, quite frankly, probably getting them wrong and driving a huge amount of cost into our business by having to correct them and recognise that actually AI is much better at this. And so I'd be going around thinking, well, what are the things that humans are really good at? What are the things that we want our finance team to be famous for? And let's focus on those things. And let's get really frustrated with boring, rote work. And let's hand that off to the machines. And it might be an automation. It might be a bot. It might be something quite simple. It could be an Excel macro. It could be productionized in a slightly different way. But let's get frustrated with boring stuff and let's automate that. And then work out, just as we did in the expenses process, where do we want to have a human? Where is it appropriate to have a human in that checking process? And let's face it, how many people just go through their expenses and just say approve, 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 approve? So quite frankly, I'm not even sure if our humans are doing a particularly good job when they're supposed to be retaining their position in the loop. So that's what I would be kind of thinking about. But honestly, start. I think that's the biggest risk, not starting, and experiment potentially, even if your organisation isn't necessarily front-footing some of this. There's loads of stuff that you can experiment with at home and learn at home on all sorts of different things, and understand where the hallucination kicks in, and that happens. I'll tell my GPT, hey, I think you made that one up. Let's try that one again. Oh yeah, you got me. Literally is the response that comes back. So I think it's just play it. Just think about where. Just start, but just don't be afraid of it, and recognise that finance teams, technology teams have been using this stuff for a long time, and then work out where your human needs to actually add value in that process.
I'm just going to sort of summarise. I like to build everything into actionable steps. Go back to your office and figure out what is the highly repetitive tasks that have a clear set of rules. Accountants are fabulous. You guys like to follow a clear set of rules. I think you are well placed to be phenomenal adopters of AI. What are the repetitive tasks that we would normally give to a junior? What has a clear set of rules? And then assign a risk rating. How much of a risk does this pose to our business if we get it wrong? Don't focus on the high-risk areas here. Focus on the low-risk, high-value things. So reconciliations, matching an invoice against the purchase order. My God, I'm doing so well on accounting terms today. Those types of things. Because you need to understand the process from understanding what. We need to know what is our problem. And then once we understand our problem, we can then go and find solutions to solve those problems. And those solutions should be based on risk. And you will have a compliance team, or you should have some idea of risk. You should be able to assign risk ratings. And then you can start a really clear and staged approach into how to implement AI into your business in a really considered manner. Be cautious around the issues.
No, you're good. How can it support critical thinking? Because I guess, we're talking about repetitive tasks, 9 plus doing the same thing over and over again. But, we want to make sure that, particularly probably for your teams, if you suddenly go, this is going to take off 10 hours of your day, or, 10 hours off your week, maybe 10 hours of your day, and doing something that, it's really boring, so let's just do it. But how do you make sure that they understand that it's not going to replace necessarily their role, but it might enhance their role by being able to use the likes of critical thinking and sort of their own personal judgment?
I think generative AI in the current form is one of the best thought partners that you can possibly find. You just got to train it and make sure it's not always telling you the stuff that you want to hear, and make sure that you're using it in a way as a critical thinking partner. So tell me how just as you can possibly reflect anyway, how can I be wrong? You know, give me the 3 reasons why this is a really bad board paper. Give me 10 things that you would do differently about the statements that I've just provided. So use it and push it in that way. But in terms of so the question was really around, you know, how do you, I suppose, sell it a little bit kind of internally. I think Ying's here tonight. Ying's our head of finance at the FMA. And I think this is I'm bullish on AI because of the background that I've got, but not everyone is. And so I think it's understanding that other different people are on their journeys. And it's about, for me, it's about, I suppose, my leadership style, setting the direction, explaining that some of this is non-negotiable, but the time frames are a little bit negotiable. But we are going to do it. It's just you get to pick the things that we're going to do along the way that makes sense, but we are going to do it. And we talk about that as a leadership team, how we're experimenting and how we're exploring, and people are using it differently. And I think that gives other people confidence and ideas how they can leverage it. But we've got a great opportunity with a very, very, with a team that's got a huge amount of very, very high workload. And our goal, even my goal, is to make sure that everyone in the finance team works a regular week. If they want to go early on Friday, they can. And that's our goal. So that's there's a clear what's in it for them. And so at the moment, that's how we're thinking about approaching different types of tools of automation and AI.
I'll just start on 3 p.m. on Friday. So I support AI. I mean, I'll just back up what my boss currently saying because I'm messing support AI. Particularly for research. One of the research exercises we're doing is how to justify how cloud assets. Okay? We know the facts. We know according to economics and understand what we're doing. One thing I found very helpful is I can ask AI and this my judgment. With order to mind, can you say something that will push me back? Then ChatGPT will come back to the argument point to push me back. Then I'll use that direction to come back to strengthen my paper to make sure that if I have order to ask, I can use ChatGPT. Like I can use that logic. So I find that from that perspective is very efficient. It's actually helped me for practical thinking.
I just have this image of people arguing with their computers. You're wrong. So sorry. Just when you said that, it just reminded me of everyone's having their own internal debates. What safeguards can be put in place to ensure AI doesn't make costly errors, particularly in the lights of financial reporting or financial decision making?
So just like, I think recently in the AI world, people have come up with this term called AI agents. So you kind of treat an AI as one particular person, which then passes a role to maybe a marketing AI, which then passes to finance AI. So you kind of do the same thing with some AI processes. So we do have a process that extracts a lot of data from the website and then puts it into a database. You can then get another process, another AI that says that cross-checks items in the database versus what the previous AI has extracted and asked. There's this match and then issues, and so then push back to the first AI to say, hey, we do this is incorrect. So that's kind of the concept of what generative AI is. It's kind of getting AI to kind of test itself over and over again until it gets the result. So if you apply the same logic to your AI processes, you can check itself so you get a much better result. Or if you don't, you can have the AI spit up the output right before it does the executable, which is maybe a journal posting or a record updating that just gets reviewed by you just before it goes.
That's really a good point. Just what Sam's talking about is you can have cheaters. So I think of agents as someone who just runs away and does what I need it to do. So it does it, brings it back, and then I have someone who reviews its work. And so we're building a piece of compliance AI that will hopefully, if I do it well, replace the entire AML/CFT industry, consultancy industry around the world. People have polarizing views about that. But I need to ensure that my answers achieve at least a 95% success rate, because we could be giving bad advice to our clients, right? So we've got an agent that grabs the information, pulls from the proprietary data, brings it back, and we have to check it. There's no reason why you can't replicate that in accounting as well. So that's what Sam's kind of talking about, is a do it and check it, and you can build that throughout the processes as well. I think one thing, just to build on the points that were raised before, is AI will never replace a human. You understand the context, you understand the strategic objectives of a business. AI will just do the heavy lifting and give you the information so you have the time to think about things. I know I'm jumping around a bit here, but you understand people, you understand the business, you understand the environment you operate within. AI is not at this stage going to have that contextual information. So it will do the heavy lifting, give it to you, and then it relies on you to then apply it. And I say to my team, it's not there to replace you, it's there to enhance you. And by being experts in our field, we can quite frankly call, I'm going to swear, not big film, bullshit on it. Yeah, big film. Yes. Because we're experts, we can check it. The most dangerous thing in the world is a piece of AI in the hands of a junior. That's when we've got problems. Not in our hands, because I know when it's making something up, I know when it's hallucinating, and it hallucinates between 50 to 60% depending on the nature of the inquiry. So we get to use it to enhance our expertise. And so I think it's really important, the safeguarding thing is being really clear what AI are we using, in what context, and who has accountability and ownership, and what are we relying on and what aren't we relying on. So being really clear around the roles and responsibilities within our organisation and how AI is being utilised.
That's answering all the questions without me asking, so that's all good. You've actually already answered this, but just in case there's any other points, but how do you recommend finance teams stay involved in control? So I think it's the whole guarding and making sure that obviously there is a checker. But any other tidbits in relation to that?
Well, I think there's one part of AI that no one's really kind of looking at. I mean, people always look at ChatGPT as the AI guru, right? I mean, that's a chat language interface, right? Behind it, you actually have like a model that can do almost a lot of things. And before we go straight through to AI, to see into this oracle of a solution, something that solves all the problems. We could take a step back. It was only about, I think, three years back, I was in a company that I just spent 3 months building an automation tool, without AI. And that automation tool was only databases and just front end and back end coding. And that reduced 6 FTEs, right? So there's no way that AI could actually have done it without having to build a tool that integrates 2 or 3 systems together. So what really could be used is actually having AI build that tool. Instead of my 3 months, I could have reduced time to maybe a month. But you would still be there getting AI to do the heavy lifting for you to build the tools that facilitates an automation that could really fast track any other initiatives that normally take 6 months or 12 months to do. So just an integral of having a face-to-face dialogue with AI. You can use leverage AI to increase other industries that are really not really performing. And I truly believe the software industry is in for a really big rehab. Stuff that would take. I think last week it would have taken us 4 weeks to build. We used Cloud AI 2 days. We finished the whole thing. It generated the whole front end, and we just connected it to our back end database. But the front end was a very large component of our coding. So you should also try and push back to software developers who try to build tools that they're saying it's 40 hours.
All cool things. Just keen, obviously, before we open up to any questions you guys have, just I guess the biggest lesson that you've all learned in your AI journey so far. What would you say that's been so far?
What I was thinking, this is probably the question I was thinking most deeply about today, and thinking about how I've been using the tools even today, from the moment that I woke up to before I came here. And then I think what I'm learning, I'm still learning, is understanding as a leader, as a professional, actually now what my value is. And is it in the board papers that I'm writing? Is it in the shout outs that I'm, don't tell anyone, that I'm crafting and publishing? I always and is that what my value is? Or is my value where it always is as professionals, in our ability to think strategically, to connect the dots, to deliver at scale, to encourage, to be the mentor, to be the coach? I think we've got dragged into this world of quite uninspiring work that we have to do, and now we get to choose where our value is. And I suppose that's what I have been reflecting as a result of that question. And I'm getting a sense of actually where do I truly deliver value for the teams that I'm leading and for the teams that I'm part of.
That's a great answer. Good follow. I think my biggest learning is it's here. It's not going to go away. And I think that that's a really important point. So AI is here to stay. It's only going to get smarter. It's only going to get faster. It's only going to be able to do more. So actively engage with it. Learn. There are so many podcasts. All the major large language models have academies that you can subscribe to. I've actually mandated my team in work hours to watch those courses and listen to podcasts. Even though I can't control their work hours, I do my very best to do that. Ask them to listen to podcasts and talk about it constantly. And I think it might have been Sam or someone who knows a lot more than AI than I do. They say it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So if it can't do what you need it to do today, it will be able to do it at some point in the immediate future. And I think that that's a really interesting thought to hold on to. So the thing that I've learned, the thing that it's here, and so let's just go in on it.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think AI has been one of it's a really big learning curve. When you first try and adapt something that you don't know before, but even if you do adapt and you can manage everything that AI has produced for you, you can really transform the way you think everything. So I think what Janine said was, it is quite dangerous in the hands of a junior. If you get the AI to code your whole platform, I've heard so many stories where the platform API rates just go crazy. You get a 6-figure bill within a month. And sometimes these AIs don't check that. So you need to actually still maintain the subject matter expertise to guide what the output of the AI is giving. Because sometimes the senior always think of it as a really supercharged junior developer that the senior needs to always oversee the work for. But if you do embrace that, you could really get 4 or 5 times the efficiencies.
It's actually quite a good point about the journey, because I was thinking about the misconceptions. Like, I cannot use technology, and I'm about to talk to Laura about Slido because I can't use technology. But the reality is that I would think that they're the ones that A, want to adopt it, B, have the energy and the enthusiasm to keep trying. But that safeguard around the IP of the business is something that I hadn't really thought about from that perspective. So. Thank you for you all spending your time and taking your time to come and talk to us. Does anyone have any questions for these guys? Not me. Yeah.
So, we talked about ChatGPT. Is there any other sort of solutions that ChatGPT can use that potentially are spring feeds for elections and security issues?
I'm experimenting with Grok at the moment because one of my girlfriends has beat me to it, so now I feel a bit bad that I haven't experimented with it. So I'm trying Grok at the moment. And Grok.
It's by X-Ray.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm also experimenting with a Notebook LLM, which is the Google the Google one. I think even with ChatGPT, there are enterprise licenses, and there's enterprise, and I think Claude and TSB have just gone. I think that's I forget the lady's name, the CDO down there. They just announced on LinkedIn that they've got enterprise with ChatGPT as opposed to Copilot, which most of our organisations have. So those things are possible. And then I think some of the subscriptions, when you know what the old adage is, if you're not paying for something, then you're the product. And so just being aware that it's worth paying for some of the stuff because of the added security protections that you can get around some of that data.
Kelsey?
What practical courses in particular would you recommend? Practical AI is run by a group of nerds, and I'm here for it. I love it. Practical AI, I run with it. I don't know, Sam, you probably know more. And then I've started the open ChatGPT. Google also has a great academy as well. And there's lots of YouTube ones, but I like to go to the source. I don't know, Sam, you probably.
Well, for me, I do a lot of self-learning, right? Because AI is such a broad subject. So I think I would start in with what you're trying to intend to do in your job. Let's say you do bank recs, what you do specific type in YouTube, say how to use ChatGPT or use AI model to facilitate bank recs. Because the tools that are available in different AI is quite wide. So you want to really pinpoint down to a certain subject matter that you will most likely use in the future, and go on to maybe YouTube or Google to kind of learn. I mean, YouTube has self-using resources. But I actually pick up all my software, pick up all from YouTube and online sources, and that's all you need. There's a lot of information out there.
I've got a subscription to Section School, and so I just started a bunch of courses on there about a year ago as part of the Spark AI MBA. It's like a mini kind of holds you accountable to doing something in a period of time, so it's kind of helpful. But then I started to do some of the other courses around the section, and I just started one yesterday on Copilot agents. So I'm going to be get the team to give me the access to the studio, and I'll start mucking around with Copilot agents myself. But as a result of doing the section course, I built my own custom GPT within, which is so much easier than it sounds, within ChatGPT. And the great thing is about and go to the GPT store. I told you at the beginning that I have a pet farm, and I'm not a good gardener, and I'm learning about a lot of this stuff. And I walk around stuff, and so there's a custom GPT in the GPT store called Planting, and there's the farmer one in there, and there are all of these people that have trained their GPTs on a particular body of knowledge, a body of knowledge that's just focused around a particular set of data, so you really can control the answers that are coming back. So just go and explore some of the other things that are in there. But Section School just opened my eyes to a whole bunch of stuff that are really easy, bite-sized chunks kind of way. So I would check that out. Yeah.
Sarah, could we collect the information from these guys
Yes,
before they go, and then maybe we could send it all out to each of you so that you don't have to try and remember, because you don't have ChatGPT in your brain and it's holding that memory for you. Maybe we could do it that way.
Yeah, I think so.
When I drive in the car, ChatGPT assistant, you can speak to her.
Yes.
And I learn about things. So we're looking to go into Australia, and I'll be talking to her about hey, I want to go into Australia. I want to get accredited to do this. What are my standards? So you can actually, how I started to learn about it is I just started to engage with ChatGPT and be like, okay, I've got zero knowledge. What do you reckon I should go to? And can you give me hyperlinks? And can you give me, the exact file? The hyperlinks don't always work, and so you need to check it. But just talk to ChatGPT as a starting point. And I think with regards to accounting, you could use ChatGPT, but there are so many amazing AI-based software solutions out there that they are phenomenal. I actually had no idea, and so I searched them in advance of this meeting, and then I started to click on them, and I was thinking, this is going to solve all my accounting. This is fantastic. So I would actually, my starting point would just be to talk to the paid version of ChatGPT and get it to direct your learning.
We'll definitely get those projects off you too. Any other questions? I don't know. Don't tell me it's not learning.
In the meantime, obviously there's the whole productivity, efficiency narrative, which is an amazing focus of AI in finance. But are there any other more underrated effects of AI in finance that people aren't talking about yet? Is there anything else you expect to have an impact?
I mean, we were at an event, I don't know, a month or so ago, and although it's all about finance teams, all about the finance industry, and looking at the whole sort of around financial advice and how they're using, how you've got Vanguard product out there, the digital robo-advisors. I think that's fascinating. I think it's the access now to financial advice becomes much more available to whole swathes of people that wouldn't necessarily have access. What were some of the other things that we?
I just stopped thinking. I was thinking about something else. Information sharing. Yeah, would be good. You don't have intranets anymore.
Oh yeah.
You can have everything
In a custom.
Yeah, and knowledge, sharing knowledge. So it's not so much productivity. It's just like this removing information silos is a really key one that my team use it for a lot. So what's in my head isn't in their heads, but once we've done something once, it should be able to be repeatable.
The org.
So
I don't know, Sam, what do you?
There's one actually we did for one of the clients. So SOPs, right? So let's say a new person comes aboard, they have a lot of training to do. If you can upload your whole SOP PDF to one of the chat platforms, and then the new person can just ask, how do you pour a cup of water, or how do you start one of the machines, and they'll show you everything taken up from the SOP from the PDF. So that PDF can just be free form PDF. And I think, Paul, to answer this, how do you prevent the SOP from kind of going into the wild when you upload it? You can actually host, if you have an IT department, you can actually host a small server that has all your PDF data with ChatGPT, which means you can actually answer the question. So that's what you call like an index. Okay, so that index goes up on your servers internally, so that never leaves your site. ChatGPT just uses the language processing to reach in the index and to answer your employees' questions. So SOPs, it's a really fast, easy upload.
Very good information, but obviously so many AI tools out there. I don't know what my juniors, seniors, what they're paying for, what they're not paying for. What about policy, just how you sort of lock things down, make sure the data is not putting out there recipes, SOPs. How do you make that? I think that's something that's quite been on my mind. So how do you sort of make sure that you're actually on stakeholders are aware of what expectations
from a compliance perspective, it starts the tone from the top. So the board would mandate the engagement or the strategic directives around the utilisation of AI, and you should definitely have a formal policy. IT teams can also lock down what people are able to use and not use, and you can also, I'm assuming you can do single sign-on, but smart people need building technology that enables single sign-on, but you can really force them into only using certain tools here, and then it becomes how do we check that they are not going beyond that. But you can also limit things when people are accessing phones from your Wi-Fi. So if you're in my office, no one can access social media, for example. And so you can also do that for different sites that people can access as well. So if you really want to start to lock it down, which to be honest, I think you should do, you absolutely should do. We do social media for IP protection purposes. So it's not because I care about kids wasting time or young people wasting time, it's just IP protection and client data because we work in a heavily regulated environment. So absolutely should have policy. There should be meetings around expectations around the utilisation of AI in the organisation, and then to the extent you're able to engage with your IT team to lock it down so we funnel them into approved sources.
Probably different view, but again, it's just I suppose the approach that I come from. If you lock everything down, then you slow the adoption, but it is a balance. I get that, and so it's you can have some, and I know we run some surveillance types of tools to understand what's being uploaded, and so that you can have those conversations with people if they're, uploading documents that they probably shouldn't do. We're not going to get through everything, and so I think it's really critical, the education piece, the explanation of why this stuff is sensitive, what could possibly happen, just explain some of the the unintended consequences of an action. But I do get nervous if we lock things down too much, people will just find routes to circumvent it, and then you've got no visibility whatsoever. Yeah.
I think it also depends on the size of the company, right? Because getting improved at the information is like, they just come to me and they're like, hey, I want this, and I'm not sure, go for it. So I think it does also depend on the organisation. So, so that's a good point about that.
Yeah.
I think you've actually already answered these questions, but just around, this is an interesting one because we're using this as well. What tools are you using to record in-person meetings, and what tools are actually used also for data analysis?
There is this phenomenal product. Have you heard of it called? I think it's called Content or Contender. Have you heard of it, Sam? It is a Christchurch company, and it is the most amazing in-person and digital meeting software we've ever seen in our lives. We've seen a lot of them. I will find the name of the software, and everyone who sees it just buys it. It analyzes the meeting, talks about it will do a SWOT analysis on the outcome of the meeting, it will detail a key actionable item list. It is phenomenal. I'm not doing it justice, but I will share the name of this company, and to give asked that question, they should go and look at it. I have no interest. We're actually looking at it in the context of our company. I've never seen anything like it, and we've been trying it for a while now.
Is there any other questions?
Let's talk about the data analysis. Sure. In terms of, is anybody using good tools for data analysis?
Look, I think even Power BI is starting, Tableau's had it for years, I think starting to have, inbuilt analysis already within its reporting. So you might build a dashboard, tell me what's going on in this dashboard. Those types of tools have been, has been around for a little while now. I think it's only getting better, but I'm pretty sure, I'm not kind of on tools as much as I used to be, but I understand those types of typical dashboarding types of tools, but it doesn't do the actual analysis. It can tell you at least what how to read this dashboard as an example of things to focus on. That might be an example, but I'm not sure.
I think Power BI is a good because before Power BI can produce anything, perhaps it already has access to all your outputs. Especially if you're really good, you're really good at data, you really know column headers, and if you really want to make use of those tools, you need to make sure column headers make enough sense because that's what AI is going to use to make sense of the data. So if it's a flag of 0 and 1, you need to say, is it active or is it approved as data, and then your AI is going to make more appropriate responses. But I think Power BI is a very good tool, little hanging fruit because guys will get access to it, and it's different.
This is outside my area of expertise, so we'll make a hash of explaining it. But there is new there are new models that are coming out that specialise in numerical data. And there is a company in New Zealand, I'll find the name and this guy is phenomenal. He built a maths equation that he now uses AI, and he will predict consumer purchasing behaviour years in advance based on events that happen today. And it is phenomenal. This company is doing so well. It's not predicting. I can't remember. But there are models coming out that specialise specifically in numerical analysis. So I'll find the name of this company, and they would be good people to speak to because it's a lesser known utilisation of AI. I specialise in words, so current models work for me, but there's some pretty phenomenal stuff coming out. So we'll pass on the knowledge and hopefully just get into it. His name is Jamie.
The other tool you were talking about is called Contented.
Contented. It's so good. Yes. Oh, so many.
So what did
So
make
much.
the cat as much as contented? Just
bring us through that process?
It was the post-meeting analysis that really did it for me. Like, what are my actionable items? And it was the way in which I could share the information, particularly with our clients. I always take juniors to meetings because they take my notes for me, and I feel like I've got to this point in my career where I'm like, I don't have to take notes anymore. But when my juniors are not with me, I'm normally talking with my hands and engaging more on a whiteboard, and so I really struggled because afterwards I'm like, I'll get you that thing, I'll get it to you, and then they'll go, hey, there's this thing that you promised me. And so what I really enjoy about it was, and what I have enjoyed, is that it took the sentiments of the discussion, it really captured what was being said in a really clear and concise way, and I always asked for consent before we recorded it, but it very clearly articulated, it does articulate like what the key actionable items were. I had found some of the other note taking, it wasn't as accurate as I needed it to be, or I had to do a lot of manipulation post meeting to be able to get it to a format for my client. But that's in our context, Fireflies is another one everyone uses.
Did you try Quill?
Quill, I haven't personally used Quill. My COO has tried Quill and he eliminated it, but I'm not sure why. I can go and ask him and feed it back up to the group one. But honestly, I think the best thing to do is to try a few and see what works for your organisation and what your needs are. There's so many. I was on one that looked at coffee AI the other day.
Oh.
Yeah, honestly, that popped me up every 5 minutes.
Did it make it for you?
So I'll take that.
And pay for it.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. I was interviewing a marketing person the other day, and she said to me, she had her very first question in an interview with a company that she was interviewing with, and they said, tell me what agents you need to do your job. And it's now just being it's now expected. I don't know how they translate to the finance and accounting industry, but it's just this, everyone's now starting to realise that that is going to be a line item on your books, and it's going to increase because you're going to need more and more agents to do what you need to do. And I think that would be interesting as well if you guys are recruiting for juniors. What is the knowledge on agents and how have they used AI in other roles around optimising processes and creating efficiencies within organisations and greater insights as well.
We had a client last year, I think it was, a technology company, but they actually said to the candidates in the second interview the technical test that they could use AI. But what they did is actually put the camera on them to see if they were only using AI. They wanted to see a mixture of sort of critical thinking and actually just almost scratching in the head moments, as well as actually just typing in new rules or new requests. And that's how they chose people after the second interview. Purely just assessing them using tools.
That's
That's
good. So in terms of development for finance people, so agentic AI is a big thing. Do you see time, and I understand there's tools out there that make it so easy for people who aren't software experts to create agents. Do you see a time when we'll be expected to be able to create our own agents, or do you think we're always going to be hiring software people to come in and develop the agents? So we're looking at what skills do we need to develop. But other than prompting, it's then just going to be utilising the agents unless there's going to be a point where we can create our own.
I think the tricky bit is linking those agents to inputs and outputs, because I think the agent, if it has all of the data, pretty much any ChatGPT can process what you need and give you the answer. But to actually make the agent work for you, which is really where the biggest thing is you need to be able to grab the data autonomously and implement or execute it to some degree autonomously, right? And that's where you get all of your safeguard issues that so I think agents are really close. I think this year, OpenAI is already producing so many products that have built a lot of these AI startups out of business because it's pretty much the same thing. Right? But I think it's the inputs and outputs where you have to link it to your existing processes that is where the bigger chunk is going to be. So if you can find a way to actually have the agent interact with your internal systems safely, with compliance, that's where you can actually kind of do it yourself with your internal IDs.
Yeah, I think it depends. I think where my brain goes is thinking about software development life cycle and thinking about some of the different skills that are required in the software development life cycle. So you're developing any type of software any kind of automation of a process, you're trying to think about what you're trying to achieve, what are the user stories, what are the requirements that you're trying to break down, and then ultimately, I think where we've got to a couple of times today is what's the testing of it, and actually I think you went there a little bit, Sam, is these models can drift, so they can go off on a tangent. They can, over time, as new data is coming in, the outputs can change because they're probabilistic. And so, what are some of how are you going to continue to verify that the model is still working in the intended way, still giving you the outputs that you need? And so, I think there's a piece in. So, I suspect that there's just an understanding of how do we build these things safely, and I suspect that you will have again experts that can potentially do that, but always in partnership with a domain expert, as we always have, has worked kind of side by side. I think it would be a tall ask, and I think that's probably where we've probably seen problems in the past where we have some citizen developers. I think that's a term that was coined a few years ago. Developing software that potentially can go a little bit rogue, what's got security holes in it and things like that. So, not sure.
I think eventually the AI agents that these AI companies produce will start interacting as third-party software to mainstream. So I mean, you're seeing Zero's ecosystem in this big, right? So I think eventually a lot of these agents are going to start popping up on almost every platform, and it's just a matter of adding the agent to your workflow.
Yes.
And I think that, but then you do need a subject matter expert in case these system developers don't really prompt it well. I mean, one last thing before you prove that output is you can say that do these results reconcile with the balance sheet, and if it's no, do it again, not make it reconcile, and you will just generatively try and redo itself. So there's a risk, but I think it's
just like in some of our standard data engineering workflows back in the day. Do exactly the same thing. Yeah.
To hire a contractor. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jackie's just over here. I'll talk to you later. Hey, look, I really want to thank you all for coming tonight. This was our first trial of seeing how it goes in the Sydney. So next time, use the front row. Instead of